Hello. What an end to the trading week and what a start to the month of October. We had a sense at the start today that this would be a positive session, but it has clearly exceeded expectations. This is the Market Wrap on BloombergQuint, and I'm Alex Mathew, filling in for Neeraj Shah. If you missed most of the action today and you're just tuning in to find out what happened, here are the headlines. The benchmarks gained handsomely, and in fact, both the Nifty and the Sensex ended at close to the high point of the day. Auto sales and Unlock 5.0 were the key drivers going into the weekend, but the Nifty Bank was a standout clearly with gains of 3.6%. 40 out of the 50 stocks on the Nifty gained, and some of the big gainers were on the screen just now. IndusInd Bank, having been sold significantly in the second half of September, has built on those gains that began about a week back. It was the top gainer on the Nifty. And you'll also see Axis Bank, ICICI, also the Bajaj twins, in making it into that top quadrant of gainers on the Nifty. On the losing side, perhaps on expected lines because of the pricing of natural gas that kicked in today and will hold for the next 6 months. ONGC is the top loser, or one of the top losers. Dr. Reddy's Laboratories also losing about 1.3% there, perhaps a little profit taking. And you also see continued selling in BPCL. I'm joined by my colleague, Nickey Mirchandani. Nickey, good afternoon. I thought Bajaj Auto was one of the interesting sub-stories today. What stood out to you?
It's the bunch of all auto names, right? The monthly sales numbers were rather encouraging. Sure that Bajaj Auto, kind of outperformed the whole group as a whole. If you look at the numbers out there, 10% growth that we saw in the overall sales. Domestic sales also, we saw 6% growth coming in month on month and a 14% year-on-year basis. So clearly an outlier out there. TVS, but you had other bunch of names like Maruti Suzuki also, which did exceedingly well in trade. The commentaries were rather encouraging. And at this point of time, we're clearly looking at a smart trend coming in for the entire auto space. But then, you know what, Alex, I'm going to come back to you and ask you about how the market breadth that you just mentioned sometime back, indicated how the mid-cap mover is looking like right now. What is the trend that you're picking up?
Interesting, because there was strength across the board today, Nickey. And let's in fact look at the broader markets. The market breadth that Nickey was referring to was clearly in favor of the advances today. There were nearly 3 gainers for every 2 losers on the NSE. And some of the themes that stood out today very clearly on the gaining side, I mentioned, at the start of trade, there was IndusInd Bank that stands out over there. You have a few other names there that I think Nickey will want to talk about in more detail. You had PVR and Inox Leisure on account of the Unlock 5.0. On the losing side, I mentioned ONGC was a top loser on the Nifty, but those gas distributors on the gaining side were also on the same update. I don't think I saw many themes on the losing side on a sectoral basis, but some of the names that stood out: Vodafone Idea losing about 4%, back under 10 rupees per share. GMM Fowler continuing to see selling pressure out there. But I do want to go back to Nickey on this PVR and Inox Leisure conversation, because Nickey, I was speaking to an analyst earlier today, and really the point that he was making was that we have to see how individual states deal with that Unlock 5.0.
Yeah, and that's correct. Even after the states, having said that, most of the analysts around the street, they're expecting that it's only during Diwali probably that they could expect some amount of big release coming in, which will make some amount of difference for these multiplexes at this point of time. They don't expect any large-scale content coming in before December, to be honest. That's what the view that one of the analysts that I spoke to in Elara Capital had. And if you look at the screen that you pointed out, PVR at this point of time had an edge over Inox. That's also got to do with the fact that even at the occupancy rate of 50%, if there were footfalls to happen at the fullest level, considering that, PVR has a little more wider presence. If you look at the number of screens that they operate in, 845 screens compared to that of 626 screens coming in from Inox. So clearly some amount of wider presence there from PVR, because of which it was a bigger beneficiary today. 7.5%, 8% kind of gains as compared to 6.5% kind of move seen by Inox. What also did well in trade today was Charlotte Hotels, GVK Hotels and the Lemon Tree. Apart from the multiplex story, you also Unlock 4.0 saw that hotels, restaurants and bars will be allowed to operate from October 5th. That in turn led to some cheer coming in for these players as well. But then there was few more listings today new kids on block? How did they debut, and what kind of listing gains did we see, Alex?
Nikki, well, clearly, those people that managed to get allotments in the two IPOs that had their listings today, well, festive season came early for them very clearly. Both of them starting with sharp gains, but saw significant selling pressure over the course of the day. Chemcon, in fact, hit a high of 743 before cooling off a little bit, but still ending with significant gains. And well, it ended with gains of over 70%. CAMS, on the other hand, had a little bit of a well, compared to Chemcon, tepid listing, but still with gains of as much as 17% from what I saw last. So quite a positive start for both those counters. We'll have to see if that actually pans out over the coming week. But speaking of the coming week, Nikki, we've got a few more IPOs that have their last day of subscription today. 3 of them, in fact, one of them UTI AMC. What are you picking up in terms of the subscription numbers? And also, we've got earnings coming up in the next week, a lot of things to watch out for. What are you looking at very closely going into the new week?
Sure, Alex. When it comes to, I'm going to first address the listing part of it. Of course, the kind of connotation that you made in terms of CAMS and the other IPO. I think the same trend or the listing trend could play out even coming in for UTI and Masscon Dog. These are the 2 IPOs. Day 3 subscription out there, but Masscon Dog subscription has done rather well. Both of them are fully subscribed, but then there is an overwhelming response which has come from a Mazgao Dog IPO at this point of time, and we're expecting the same amount of show coming reflecting in on the listing gains given the kind of response that we've seen for the IPO. That will happen not the coming week, probably the week later, because it's just the allocation week thereafter. But what we'd like to keep an eye out will be on Saturday. Vedanta will be coming in with their numbers, and apart from that, the whole discovery prize and the mechanism will kickstart post that. Importantly, what we have is TCS kickstarting the IT season. October 7th is the day when they officially kickstart the season. So that will mark a start of the new earnings season. And we'd like to see, because most of the brokerages at this point of time, they're very bullish when it comes to the entire IT setup. They're expecting these companies to rather do well. And if I'm, also what I'd like to watch out would be the interest waiver case on banks, which is tentatively expected to held on October 5th, because of which banking space overall would be in focus. But if you're, Alex, if you're talking about the whole broader trend, or speaking broadly about how the global setup has been, the Asia at this point of time, it had a positive close coming in, although the volumes were very thin. That's perhaps because of the market holidays, and also the Japanese index was shut because of some clear technical glitches out there. But at this point of time, European markets are doing well. It's in green at the start of the trade, and US futures are pointing towards a continued gains on Wall Street. But with this, it's the market wrap this afternoon that we have for you. And just a reminder before you guys go, do tune into BloombergQuint.com for further updates and the news element and the analytical pieces that we have. And from all of us here at Bloomberg Quint, have a lovely evening and even better weekend.